Winter to Remember by Annabel D.C. Marañon. Kiel was looking at the clouds one after while he laid on the grass.
Instead of saying afternoon, she said after.
He was thinking about what is above those white and cottony clouds. Are these kids up there whom he can play with?
The reader said this instead of there. She also mispronounced whom with whom.
Do they have toys the same as his? Do their parents allow them to play outside their house?
She said house instead of houses.
Are they free the COVID-19 pandemic?
She omitted the word from.
These are the questions that play in his mind.
Instead of saying this, she said this.
Kiel felt sad often because in the past few months,
she mispronounced the word few and said pew.
He was not able to do his usual habits like playing with his friends.
Instead of saying friends, she said friends.
Kiel was thinking deeply when a white big cat appeared in front of him. It is smiling broadly, which is unusual for a cat.
Instead of saying broadly, she said broadly.
Its tail was positioned straight in the air as it was happy to see him.
She mispronounced the word positioned and said position.
He was about to rub the cat when it ran fastly away from him. Kiel was tempted to run after the cat.
She said tempt instead of tempted.
He didn't notice that he'd gone far.
Instead of saying didn't, she said didn't and then replaced the word that with the.
He was amazed when he saw the cat float over the rainbow.
The student mispronounced the word amazed and said amaze. She successfully corrected herself after saying saw and said saw. She said float instead of floated.
He followed it until it reached its destination.
She mispronounced the word followed with follow and said the word reach instead of reached.
He saw an open gate of a kingdom. The cat looked back at him still smiling and said, "Welcome to our magical kingdom."
She mispronounced the word looked and said look. She mispronounced the word said and said said.
Kiel was frightened when he realized the cat was speaking but still as courageously.
Instead of saying frightened, she said frightened. And instead of saying realized, she said realize. She also omitted the word that. Instead of saying asked, she said ask and replaced the word it with in. She also mispronounced the word courageously as courageously.
"Where am I?" The cat didn't answer, and suddenly it disappeared like a bubble.
Instead of saying the word didn't, she said didn't and mispronounced the word disappeared as disappear.
Kiel entered in the magical kingdom. He was welcomed by a wizard.
She said welcome instead of welcomed.
He saw many children riding on different rides. All were smiling and laughing. He was standing when a group of children approached him.
She said approach instead of approached.
They invite him to come with them and try the different rides.
She said invite instead of invited.
They first rode in a hot air balloon, in which riders leave the world behind and enjoy the excitement of flight.
She mispronounced the word live as lib.
The ride has 10 colorful balloons that rise off the ground and spin.
She successfully corrected herself after saying ra and changing it to ground.
taking the riders up, up and away. After the first ride, they tried to experience the adventure of riding a dinosaur.
She said experience instead of experience.
Just like in the movies,
Instead of saying movies, she said movies.
they choose from the 6 dinosaur tubs to ride
She said choose instead of chose.
and maneuver it up and down while it revolves around the central point.
She mispronounced the word maneuver as maneuver.
Kel was enjoying the company of his newfound friends,
She said company instead of company.
so they chose anonymously.
She said choose instead of chose. And instead of saying unanimously, she said animously.
The third ride, which is the bouncing boulder,
She said boulder instead of boulder.
a mini tower ride that can carry at least 6 passengers to a height of approximately 10 meters.
Instead of saying approximately, she said approximately.
Then quickly drops in a series of short drops. They were tireless and enjoying each other's company,
She mispronounced the word company as company.
so they also tried other rides until they heard an announcement.
She said heard instead of heard.
Everyone was asked to ready themselves for the magical moonlight parade. At the end of the end, they witnessed the colorful fireworks display.
She mispronounced the word witnessed as witness.
As Kel was looking in the fireworks display, he wished that his family was also there
She said wish instead of wished.
to witness what he saw. He missed them suddenly and closed his eyes.
She also said miss instead of missed and said close instead of closed.
He felt someone was tapping his cheeks. He opened his eyes slowly and saw her mother.
She mispronounced opened as open.
It seems that you had a great dream.
She said sims instead of seemed.
You were smiling before tap your cheeks, said mother.
She omitted the word I and said tap instead of tapped and said as said.
Kel realized that it was all a dream. I rarely experience a dream like that.
She said experience instead of experienced.
I thought it was true, he said.
She mispronounced thought as to. She also said said instead of said.
He started to narrate his adventure to a mother on their way back home.
She repeated the word he and said start instead of started. She also successfully complete her correction after saying ne and changed it to narrate. She also inserted the word a between to and mother.